And I think our goal was to honor the past, and we have great colors, we have great history, but also put a modern twist on it. And so I think when you see them, you'll see both of those things. And you'll see, hopefully, uniforms that propel us, at least for the next 5 years, to be, I think, one of the great uniforms in the NFL. We're never going to change them dramatically, but there's always an opportunity to modernize them, and I think people will see that.
From my uncle who's over here,
Welcome back, sports fans. Thank you for returning for another video. I am your host, Johnny Gaz. We are getting ever so close to the new uniform unveiling by the Detroit Lions heading into the 2024 season. There is a large unveiling event planned for April 18th, just a few days away, this Thursday. It's going to be held at Ford Field, and I am so excited. It's been 7-8 years, as Rod Wood explained as we entered this video, that the Lions have introduced something new to their current uniform set, which we've talked about in previous videos, certainly needs an update and an upgrade. So today, we're going to kind of prepare ourselves for the new uniform unveil. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to look at the history of the Lions uniforms, and we're going to talk about what to expect as we get closer to this uniform unveiling. But before we go any farther, make sure to like the video if you're digging the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. Hit that subscribe and notify bell so you don't miss any future videos here on the channel. I cannot say thank you enough for your time and everyone's watching and commenting on the videos. We are now on the road officially to 500 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. Let's get into today's topic. Let's first take a look at the current uniform set for the Detroit Lions. This is the 2023 uniforms. And like I said, they have never really excited me ever since they came out with these new uniforms back in, 2014, 15, 16, whatever it was. You know, they've introduced some fun additions to this uniform set. You see the all grays here at the bottom. The new blue helmet they introduced last year, but had to coordinate it with the alternate uniform because of those weird NFL rules. So I just, it kind of clashed, the blue helmet with the grays, and I have never been a fan of that gray uniform. It's just so dull. So, overall, the Honolulu blue and silver is historic, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But the current uniform set for the Detroit Lions certainly needs an overhaul. That's why I'm excited for it. The numbers, as you see here, have been said to be difficult to read. There's not a contrast. They didn't, I think, mix in enough white into the home uniform sets. I did like when they would go the blue on blues, as you see here in the top left. And as I've said many, many times over, my favorite uniform currently of the Detroit Lions was the white on whites, which they would wear on the road, and they just seem to be more successful. Now, I am one of those people that have always applied to the rule that if you look good, you play good. And again, going back to my favorite current uniform set, the white on whites that you see here, I think the Lions were 5-1 on the road when they wore those uniforms. So maybe there's something to be said for that. But again, overall, have really ever been extremely thrilled with the current uniform set for the Detroit Lions, and I'm ready for this new uniform unveiling. Now, what does it mean, right? I think there was a lot of misconceptions, and I think there still are out there as far as what this means for the uniforms. It's not a full rebrand. I think it was said in the past that that may have been the case, but that is not the case here. Obviously, the Detroit Lions name historically for over 90 seasons, will still hold true now moving forward. The organization has come out and said they're not going to do away with their primary colors, the Honolulu blue and silver, which again we'll talk about here in a moment. And as Rod Wood said as we entered this video, this is really more of an updating, a modernization of the current uniform sets that you see here. But I really think they're going to make a lot of nice additions. I think they're going to make the little necessary tweaks. Now, I really have no idea. This is just hopeful thinking. But based on what the organization has said, we'll talk about what to expect here. I really am excited for the switch. I also want to throw a huge shout out once again to gridiron-uniforms.com. This a fantastic, all-encompassing database full of all uniforms related to the NFL and beyond. You can research really any year, any era, any type of uniform, any team. It's amazing. Definitely go check them out. Again, it's gridiron-uniforms.com. So let's talk about the history of the Detroit Lions uniforms. Where does the Honolulu blue and silver actually come from? Well, as you see here in the Gridiron Uniforms Database, the Lions actually started out in Portsmouth as the Portsmouth Spartans, sort of this purple color that you see here in these original uniforms. Well, the former owner, G.A. Richards, moved the team from Portsmouth to Detroit. The name then changed from the Portsmouth Spartans over to the Detroit Lions, and that was sort of to match the Detroit Tigers and the jungle animal theme that you had going there. But where do the colors actually come from? Believe it or not, when the team was moved from Portsmouth to Detroit, their all-pro halfback, Glenn Presnell, who was a scoring leader in 1933, was moved from Portsmouth to Detroit with the team. Well, the owner at the time, G.A. Richards, invited Presnell and his wife to a dinner and actually asked them what they thought the team color should be. Well, his wife weighed in and loved the idea of blue and silver. So they went on this kind of goose chase to find the perfect blue tone to match with silver, and they ended up on this sort of Honolulu blue. Now, Honolulu blue is a cross between sort of a medium dark shade of cyan blue. And we're going to go through sort of the decades and eras of Lions football, and you'll sort of see that shade of blue change. But ultimately, the organization has really held true outside of one era, which we'll look at here in just a moment. But they've held true to the Honolulu blue and silver theme really for over 90 years in this organization's history. So let's really dive into some of these. I think it's cool. You know, we just touched on the Portsmouth Spartans. It's hard to even think about the Lions wearing a shade of purple. So it's kind of cool, obviously, as the Portsmouth Spartans. That then transitioned in the mid-30s into the Honolulu blue and silver that you see here. And we'll kind of slowly scroll up, and you see the shade of blue sort of start to change. Here's a fun introduction here in 1942 with this sort of silver jersey that you see here. So here in 1942, they sort of change up a little bit and add kind of a silver or gray tone jersey in. As you see, it was worn in the preseason only, and then obviously for the season, you have the Honolulu blue. So that's kind of fun. But as we work up the years, we notice here the introduction of a red, which is kind of obviously unfamiliar to most Lions fans. You see some red here. Back in 1948, Elvin Bo McMillan was hired away from Indiana University to be the head coach of the Detroit Lions. Well, he brought the Indiana famous color red and introduced that into the color scheme, as you see here. Here's the 1948 Detroit Lions uniform set. Incredible. Mostly red. You also see the all-black uniform, which is kind of cool. Back in the 40s, introduced into the Lions color scheme. Again, brought over from former coach from Indiana University, but the team really didn't win in these uniforms. The black on black were actually used for must-win games. Doesn't that sound familiar? But it didn't really work out back in that era, so they then quickly transitioned back to the Honolulu blue and silver, which sort of then carried through the rest of the organization history to today. So again, kind of fun to see that red mixed in here as well. That's really cool. You then start to see kind of stripes being introduced there into the 50s. The logo, I think they ended up then mandating that the logos be put on the helmets in the 60s. I think that's when the kind of television contracts came into play to give the organization, the NFL in general, just more visibility. So then you see the logo on the helmets. Here's the 1961 Detroit Lions uniform sets with the logo on the helmet. You see a little bit more striping being worked in here, which is pretty cool. It's fun because GridironUniforms.com mix in the preseason jerseys as well. Again, it's all-encompassing. And as you see, we'll get closer. You'll even see some of the patches and insignias on each jersey. Here's the old-school look and feel that you see on Thanksgiving, the bottom left corner here, that Lions still have worn now forever and ever. So again, just a really cool look as you kind of go through the decades. And again, what I noticed as I was looking at this the first time and a few times going through this is how the hue of blue tend to change. So it was a little bit darker here in the 70s. Here in the mid-70s, it seemed to change. 1975, kind of a lighter Honolulu blue there, more striping. Bubbles the Lion is prevalent on the helmet there, which is cool. So again, a little bit of the lighter Honolulu blue here in the 70s. Working our way up into the 80s, you start to see a little bit more of the outlining of the white on the blue jersey as well. The striping comes a little bit more dominant. You see more patching and insignias being worked in throughout the years. Here's where we take a look at the 1991 Detroit Lions GM J. Russ Thomas Memorial Patch. So again, really cool, and another shout out to GridironUniforms.com because it's just everything's there for you. Everything they wore in 1985 I'm sorry, this is 1991, 12-4. They even give you the record. Wilson made the jerseys, so really cool look back then. Classic Lions look, which again really held true 70s, 80s. Here we are, the early 90s. We're getting into the Barry Sanders years. Really cool, the classic Lions look. So a couple of things I want to shout out. So here in 1994, they introduced the old Thanksgiving Day jerseys. So that's when that starts to come into play here is the mid-90s. They came back with the classic look and feel, took away the insignia from the helmet, went back to the old style silver, working off the Honolulu blue, and of course the black shoe accents there. I think another cool year to look at is 1998. In that year, they introduced the blue pants. Again, not much really changed from that 1950s era all the way till today, and 1998 as we're looking at there. Then they introduced the blue pants. I did not like that. I don't know that I've loved the blue pants in general, especially on the road. I'm okay working it off of the home blue jerseys, but they weren't doing it back in this era. I didn't love it. This was a Barry Sanders era jersey, and I didn't love this change, but kind of fun to see back in 1998. And then again, not much really changed throughout the late 90s, early 2000s, but of course, we know in 2003, the Lions then introduced the black accent. I think with enough clamoring from fans outside, I think they finally were, introduced something that they thought was new age, something that they thought modernized it back then. I think you saw a lot of teams, not only in football, but all over sports, kind of introduce black as an outline or as an accent. And I'm not saying that it doesn't look cool, but it just seemed to fall in line with what you do with your uniform set to, jazz it up. It wasn't creative. It wasn't imaginative. And ultimately, the team didn't win because of this. And we've talked about in past videos about does winning make a good uniform? And although, no, that's not really what does make a good uniform, it certainly helps. And I would make the argument in the Lions' current set of uniforms that I really didn't like prior to these last few seasons. Now, I still don't love them, but I do like them more than when they win. And I'm sure many fans would agree. But again, going back to this era of Lions football, this is 2003 when they first introduced the black accent. I just don't think it worked. And the team was so bad in this era, it was hard to get behind that. I think the most classic look and feel, let's try to find the one, probably 07 here. You look and they actually went to the black jersey altogether. So they actually introduced a full black jersey, black sock, black shoe, along with the black accent. A cool look. And I think, again, if you go black on black anything, and we've said this in previous videos, it's a cool look and feel. But because the team was just so terrible in this era of Lions football, let's go to 08, the 0-16 season. Let's just take a look at that, which they actually did away with the black on black jersey for that season, it looks like. But here's your 0-16 Detroit Lions, a 75th year anniversary patch, the Gene Upshaw Memorial patch, and the black accents, and they were the worst they have ever been. So, at that point, I think it just killed the idea of the black accent. And the Lions got back to sort of their normal color routine a few seasons later. So we get into the 2010s. Again, they're still working in the black here and there, 2010s. And then here's the new uniform set we're looking at from 2016 into 2017. That's where they made the jump from the old uniform set with the black accents to the current uniform set they have today, introducing the grays as the alternate, the blue pants on the road, again, which we've talked about, not great. But that's really the history of the Detroit Lions uniforms. And what I think is cool, really more than a lot of things, is that the Lions haven't had to change a bunch throughout their organization's history. Again, you see it here, 90 seasons long, and we really have had Honolulu blue and silver throughout that entire history. Yes, there's been, a blip of red, which we talked about briefly, but that didn't work, and they quickly went back to what the organization is known for, and that's been true from, again, the 30s all the way up until today. So I think that's a really cool thing that they've maintained that. The organization has come out and said they're not looking to get away from that history, so I don't expect the blue and silver to go away. I think they're going to play with the tone, and we'll get in a little bit more into what we should expect with this uniform reveal here now. Okay, so we've looked at the history. We opened up the video with Rod Wood's statements there, and he's come out and boldly said that this is going to be one of the better uniforms in the NFL. At least that was the goal. And he's made some excitable statements here up until this point. But what do we know? What can we expect for this upcoming uniform reveal? I think we know, we just talked about, they're not looking to move away from the Honolulu blue and silver. That's the organization's color. That's their history. And they're going to stick with that. Rod Wood has come out and said a lot of statements about the pants and having a lot of different pants options. So I think you're going to see a lot of versatility in the new uniform set. I believe that although there has not been any leaks, and this is just me speculating, if you go and look at some of the draft caps, some of the available merchandise now on like fanatics.com, nflshop.com, you're seeing a lot of matte gray. And I believe that that's sort of going to be the base color for the uniforms. I'm hearing a lot of talk about them kind of utilizing the new Ford Bronco, the 2024 Ford Bronco. And I guess there's these paint colors that seem to be familiar to Lions fans as far as the blue tones, the silver tones. Obviously with the Ford family always being involved here with the organizations, you're going to have some sort of tie-in to the auto industry and that piece there. And I think there's something to that. So I would implore you to go and take a look at some of those photos of the 2024 Ford Bronco, the matte black, the matte silver, the matte gray, the blue accents. I think you're going to kind of see a lot of tie-in there. They've talked about the alternate helmet, the blue alternate helmet, which you see here. They said that they're going to make minor tweaks to that. It's not going away, but I think they're going to tweak it so that it fits the new uniform set and it doesn't clash as much as I thought that it did, and as many people did against that gray on gray uniform, which again is super dull. Please do something different in the alternate sets. So, I think we're going to see a lot of exciting things. I think we'll also see a different font as far as the insignia, the patches, the numbers primarily. I think one of the complaints was they were just not very easily readable, especially on the home jersey with the gray on gray. I think they'll do a better job in contrasting those numbers off of the jersey. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And certainly don't fall into the trap of fake leaks. I think a lot of people get all worked up on these man-made renders of what people want the jerseys to be or what they think they're going to be. I have not seen any truthful leaks of this to this point. We're just a few days away at this time, and I just don't see any credible, true picture information available out there. So let's just continue to be excited. Let's take in the information that we've just reviewed and hope for the best as we get towards this uniform unveil. Yes, new uniforms. Oh, I cannot wait. April 18th, Thursday, a few days away. Definitely come back and see me. We'll do a full review of the new uniforms. I cannot wait. But what do you guys want to see? What would satisfy you as a Lions fan? Is it a color change? Is it a pattern change? Is it playing with the numbers? Is it, making a different helmet? What do you guys want to see in a new uniform? What are you excited for? Man, I cannot wait. Definitely come back and see me. Thank you guys so much for coming along for another video. Definitely hit that like button if you're digging the vibe here at Johnny Gaz Sports. Subscribe and hit the notify bell so you don't miss any future videos here on the channel. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. We've just surpassed 250 subscribers, so we are on the road to 500. I so much appreciate your guys' time. Make sure to take care of yourself. Your mental health is number one. I definitely want to see you come back for future videos. Thank you so much for your time. You guys have a great day.